Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing a book unhaul and there's quite a few books here that I'm going to be unhauling today. This came about because over the weekend I reorganized my bookshelf. I don't know how well you can see it, but I'm really happy with how that's turned out. So as I was going through my books and taking them all off the shelf, I pulled out some and set them aside to unhaul that I just don't need on my shelves anymore. As you can tell, I've got limited space, so there's no point in hanging on to books that I don't really want in my collection. So the first book that I'm going to be unhauling is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This is quite a recent YA fantasy release, and I think it's the first book in a series. It's about a couple of human girls that have to live in fairyland because their parents were killed by fae. Overall, I just didn't love this book. I kind of enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars, and if it's the type of book that you think you'd be interested in, you probably will like it, but it's just not really my thing. And I have a friend that does want to read this book, so I'm going to pass this on to her and hope that she likes it better than I do. It's such a beautiful book, so it kind of pains me to let it go, but there's no point in keeping it if I'm not going to reread it. Next, I have a couple of other YA books, and these two are actually favourites of mine, but one of them is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell, and the other one is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell, and these are 2 of my all-time favourite books. They're kind of the books that got me hooked into YA, especially YA contemporary with Fangirl. It's not something I'd read before that. The reason that I'm going to be unhauling these 2 is because I have other copies of them in editions that I prefer. After I bought this one, which is kind of the original cover, I saw the limited fan art edition at the warehouse, which has a yellow cover that I just think is really pretty, and it's got fan art in the inside cover as well, which is really cool. I had intended to keep both because I really love this book, but there's kind of just no point, and I don't have the room to have multiple editions of books, so I'm going to be passing this one on to a friend who hasn't read it, and I know she's going to love it. And then this one, I also have the newer paperback edition, which is gorgeous. It's so stunning. I was never really a fan of this cover at all. I just don't think it's that pretty, but the new one is beautiful. It's like black and purple and turquoise if you haven't seen it, and it's got pictures of Simon and Baz on the cover. So cool. So I just don't need to hang on to this copy as well. Like I said, I was going to keep it just because I love these books so much, but there's really no point in having multiple copies of them when I have those ones that I can reread whenever I want. The next book that I'm going to be unhauling is one that I haven't actually read. There's a few of these on this list as well, and that's just because even though I always think with books I haven't read I should hang on to them because maybe I'll want to read it one day and then it's there when I want it, but I just feel like these books that I'm going to be getting rid of that I haven't read are just ones that don't feel like a priority for me, and I have such a long TBR of books that I don't own and stuff, books that I'll keep trying to get out from the library and that sort of thing. There's no point in having books that I don't really want to read in my physical TBR. So this one is Man Alone by John Mulligan. This is a New Zealand book. I guess it's probably literary fiction. It might be a classic. I don't know how old it is. I don't really know much about this. I think it's set during the Great Depression from what I just saw on the back, but other than that, not sure, not that interested. It's probably really good, but going to be unhauling that one. Next, there's a couple of books that I also haven't read, and it's just because I don't see myself getting to them. Unfortunately, we have The Two Marias by Jonathan Kislev and My Quest for Peace by Jonathan Kislev. This one, My Quest for Peace, is like a non-fiction book, and this one is a historical fiction book, and it's just not set during a time that I'm super interested in, so I don't see myself probably enjoying this one, so might as well pass it on to someone who will love it. Next is another classic. It's Lady Oracle by Margaret Atwood. I think I bought this one just because I thought it was going to be on a reading list for uni, but then they changed the reading list, so I've just had this on my shelf for like a couple years and I don't think I'm ever going to read it, and I hate this cover. I think it's really ugly, so if I ever do decide that I want to read Lady Oracle, I think I would definitely rather get a different edition or just get it from the library, because I also don't know anything about what this is about. Next, going back to books that I have read, this is one that I had to read for uni last semester. A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce, and I hated this book so much that as soon as I got through the first, I don't know, chapter or something, I knew that it wasn't one that I was going to be using for an assignment or for my exam because I just really wasn't interested in this book. It's set in Ireland. Irish history is, and like politics, that kind of thing, is something that's dealt with really heavily in this book, and it's something I know nothing about, so it's really sometimes difficult to read fiction that's so strongly influenced by ideas that you have no familiarity with at all. So I just didn't find it interesting because of that. The writing style also really bored me. Dialogue was written with dashes instead of speech marks, and that bothered me, and I just overall really was not interested in this book. It's a shame because it is really beautiful. Next, I'm going to be getting rid of a whole series, and this is one that I've literally been saying that I would finish since I started it, I guess, and I started reading it in whenever it came out. I don't know when that was, and I bought the first book, quite liked it, bought the second book, and I just gave up halfway through, and then years later I've bought the third book to try and motivate myself to finish the series, but I've had the third book for a couple years now and I still haven't picked the series up again. So I think I should just admit defeat and decide that I'm not going to finish this series. That is the Divergent series by Veronica Roth. I was really into dystopians. I read I think The Hunger Games first, or it might have been Matched first, one of the two. And I also read the Maze Runner series. Really enjoyed those three series, and then this was the fourth one that I picked up, and I think I might have just been over dystopians a little bit by then. The last book that I'm going to be unhauling is one that again was a textbook for uni last semester, and that is Readings in Ancient Greek Philosophy. I was going to say by, but it's edited by a whole bunch of people, and it's a whole lot of different philosophers are covered. There's a lot on Plato and quite a bit on Aristotle as well. It is essentially just their original texts, so like their writings that they did themselves. There are introductory paragraphs, but other than that, in the way of notes and things like that, there's not much to this book. It's mostly just the original readings. This was a class that I really didn't enjoy, but that's because the class had a focus on metaphysics, which is not an aspect of philosophy that I am especially interested in. Philosophy is my minor at uni, but I am more interested in philosophy of religion and ethics and things like that, not so much metaphysics. Yeah. In saying that, these readings are obviously not just on metaphysics, there are just little snippets that were related to metaphysics that we had to study for that class. But the reason that I'm unhauling this really is because I already have texts by Plato and by Aristotle in other books that I own. I've got Plato's Republic, I think I've got some other works by him as well, and I've got I think it's The Politics by Aristotle, and I've got some of his other works too in a different book, so I just think there's no point in me having this one when I kind of have their works in other editions already, and I just also really didn't enjoy this class, so it's nice to like get rid of the textbook. I'm quite excited about that. As a side note, I have been revamping my Instagram lately. I was posting when I was like going through my bookshelves on my story, so make sure you go follow me on Instagram if you don't want to miss out on things like that on my stories. But I'm also really excited about the posts that I have coming up. I completely have started afresh on my Instagram. I've kind of got a new aesthetic or a new theme going, and there's some posts coming up that I'm really looking forward to sharing with you guys, so make sure you go follow me on Instagram if you haven't already, at royaevereads. It's the same as my YouTube name, and you can also follow me on Twitter if you haven't already, and friend me on Goodreads if you want to know what I'm reading and what's on my TBR. That's it for my book unhaul. If you've read any of these books, let me know your thoughts on them in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys with another video in a couple days. Bye.